We are excited as well to hear about our 2018 strategic plan process. So I know Planning Committee had an opportunity to review this a little bit earlier, and we're looking forward to the whole board hearing about it. Dr. Swift.
Very good. Thank you, Madam President and trustees. As Trustee Manley mentioned earlier in her report from Planning Committee, and Planning Committee also includes Trustee Jeff Gaynor and Trustee Jessica Kelly, we have been working on convening a community conversation. And so we thought we would review the plan with the entire board this evening and receive your final input on process. And then our hope is to launch this entire process very, very soon. In fact, right after Thanksgiving. And we'll be deeply engaged in this process throughout several months. So it'll be a great time in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. We've been planning this. The trustees recall that we actually were planning this a year ago, and then due to several things that occurred, we decided to put a little pause button on this process, and now we're coming back to it. So we're very excited to be able, in fact, it was following Election Day in 2016 that the wisdom of the trustees was perhaps pause just for a little bit. And so we're excited to be back to the process. We have, over the spring and summer, spent 3 days with the cabinet team, and they've really launched kind of the core of this work. We've worked with our principals and district leadership group, the instructional council, and then the board has been engaged at the August retreat and an executive committee meeting in September, and then again with our planning committee meetings, and then this evening at this regular board meeting. Here's how it's rolling out at this time. It's all about a conversation. I brought some of my favorite sources and I'll pass them around. This was the book we used in 2013 on the Listen and Learn tour. Trustees who were on the board before, you remember this was the piece I quoted in my interview for this job, and this was the direct quote. Everything good in life begins with a conversation. Talking with each other one-to-one is human beings' most powerful form of attunement. Conversations help us understand and connect with others in the ways that no other species can. And that's from Daniel Pink. To sell as human is not my favorite idea of selling, but his whole premise of this book is that we are natural sales folk when we engage with each other and develop a collective will, a collective direction for our work. Another piece that we've looked at is a more research-based piece, but it's William Isaac's Dialogue and the Art of Thinking Together. He really points out, he uses the term dialogue more than conversation. Pink uses the term conversation, but he talks about the intention of dialogue is to reach a new understanding, and in doing so, to form a basis from which to think and act. So that idea of dialogue is not just to solve problems, but hopefully to dissolve problems. And I love that, dissolve problems. We don't merely try to reach agreement. Our goal is to create a context from which new agreements or newest understandings might come. So we seek to uncover a base of shared meaning that can help to coordinate and align our actions with our values, and that is the art of thinking together. So we've been looking at this model then that Ms. Helton is going to pull up. Ms. Osinski put this together for us today, and it comes, trustees, out of the research article that you have in your packet. You may or may not want to read that, but I wanted you to be able to see where this hierarchical model of conversational leadership. So the idea that we have our purpose and our strategic intent. We've talked this evening a lot about meeting the needs of students and being sure that all students have opportunities and that we're removing disparities across student groups. We engage all of our stakeholders. We use those collaborative social technologies. Don't be worried by the word technology. Conversation is a technology. But we look at this idea of conversation as the process that moves the work forward. And then hopefully on the other side of this process, and trustees, it looks like mid-spring or early spring, February, March, we would have a draft for you all, and then back again in May, hopefully with something more in final form. But our goal is to bring a collective intelligence and collective idea of goals and metrics of what we want to achieve for our children over the coming years. So we're very excited about this idea of conversation as a way to move this work forward. Here are the questions. Trustee Manley previewed them. I'm anxious to receive more feedback this evening, but some of these are very familiar, very similar to the ones we used on Listen and Learn. They're framed up just slightly differently, but as we think about the future, what do we want for our children in this Ann Arbor community? What is that dream that we have? Secondly, what do you value in the Ann Arbor Public Schools that you want to be sure to hold on to? So those things that we would put on that list of, as you're thinking about new plans, don't change this. And then question number 3, diving into where do you, and no one knows better than our students and our parents and our community members and our staff, exactly where our opportunities are to do better, to realize improvement. So I'm sure that question will yield fruitful conversation. And then finally, is there anything else that you would like for us to know and hear? So those are the kind of the 4 cornerstones of the conversation. As Trustee Manley shared, we plan to use the World Cafe process. And trustees, I've included in your packet this evening, Ms. Helton included for you, the World Cafe design principles, the World Cafe method, and then you have the picture of the conversational leadership model. But we'll be using this process through our community meetings. That will launch in November and go through the spring. We will also, because we know that folks are busy, so we will use the face-to-face meeting format. We prefer that. We love sitting around a table chatting with folks. So we'll do that in leadership meetings, with teachers, with principals, with instructional council, with employee leadership groups. We'll do that in staff meetings in every single school and in each and every one of our departments. So I'm looking forward to getting that feedback from departments like Ms. Bacalor's on Rec and Ed and other departments across the organization. We'll be on a community tour. We'll be out at schools, and we talked on planning committee about the importance of being right into those community centers and other locations where folks might not normally get to us, that we will actually get to them for a meeting. And then meetings with strategic groups. So trustees, you're familiar with that list of folks that we try to see, all of our parent groups that regularly speak at the board meeting, the Rotary group, the Kiwanis group, all of those community groups, those that are willing to see us. Sometimes our community groups say, let us meet with these questions and then we'll dispatch someone to come meet with you, trustee. That's good too. We'll do it any way they like to do it. But because not everyone will get their voice heard at a public meeting, we also are going to make sure to use the Thought Exchange online conversational tour. And from our experience last year, our first endeavor with Thought Exchange, we expect and anticipate thousands of responses. And what we love about Thought Exchange, trustees, I'm not sure if you remember, is the first wave with that tool is that folks respond to the questions. Then about 10 days later, our parents receive sample answers from other folks. And then they get to star or rate those responses to decide really which ideas are gaining traction and which ideas are really held only maybe by just a few folks. So it's really kind of fascinating to see that data. So that'll be the community conversation phase, fall and winter of 2017-18. Then we'll be out in phase 3 to get feedback. Now, between phase 2 and phase 3, obviously we'll be working with our thought exchange partners and cabinet team. We'll get lots of good work, I'm sure, to take all of this data and get it into the beginning of a strategic plan, a set of goals and ideas and values and things that the community wants to be sure that we have as our collective wisdom. So in spring of 2018, our hope is to be out in the community to refine the messages and the patterns and the themes that we've heard. We will use thought exchange community engagement process. We will also use the strategic group meetings, and then we'll do a community tour for public feedback. So we're very excited in phase 3 for folks to say, well, maybe we said that, but we didn't mean it exactly that way. We think you need to make an adjustment here or there. So we're very excited in that phase to really fine tune. Some of our students are too young to remember this, but I think of tuning in a radio dial that will, really be tweaking things so that it fits just right with what our community is saying. Then we'll move into our final phase, phase 4, where I hope somewhere between April and June to bring the trustees and bring the community a draft report from what we've heard, both the initial tour and the summative or input and feedback tour, but receive all of that and bring it forward. Our target is to publish a strategic plan to the Board of Ed and trustees, depending on our spring, whether that happens at that June, one of the 2 June meetings, or whether you all take a look at the draft and you say, you know what, Superintendent, take this home for the summer and get some more work done on it. We're open-minded as to whether that might be June or September. But at that time, we look forward to publishing a video and sharing our strategic plan with the Ann Arbor community. Now, you might think that's the final step, but we put in a phase 5 because phase 5 is really for our teams in the district to think about how will we know? Because it's one thing to say we intend to hold these values, we intend to achieve these goals, but the question is how will we know? So in phase 5, our district teams will be busy developing metrics, their plans of action and their metrics around achieving our goals. I will ask each department, each division in the district to craft their own plan. I intended to bring my set of Russian nesting dolls that I have on my desk to really illustrate this, because I'm really excited, Mr. Dimitri, to see finance teams plan for meeting all of our goals and how they will measure their progress on that. Very excited to see special needs, Dr. Brown, to see Ms. Colligan. How will technology fit as a Russian nesting doll inside the plan? So that, I believe, will be summer work. And then in the fall, I'm hoping to bring back for you all actually the division and department plans, so you can take a look at what the metrics are and how every single person in the district will be able to say, how do we know that we're making progress toward our goals? So with that, trustees, it's an overview. I do plan, as I hope everyone else is going to get away for a couple of days over Thanksgiving, and I'm excited. Yes, I'm excited actually to take your feedback from tonight and really make sure we're very finely tuned and ready to launch when we come back from Thanksgiving break. So I was very grateful for this discussion to be planned for tonight so we could hear from you all. I know that planning has heard this multiple times. They may have things they want to add, or Madam President, that's our initial plan.